Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AMPM podcast. My name is Manny and I will be your host, and this is the show where we discuss all things Amazon private label and how to generate recurring revenue streams 24 hours per day during the AM and the PM, hence the name of the show. Get it? AMPM podcast. As a matter of fact, I was out shopping for a new mattress. After all, outside of my office chair, that mattress will be the second most used thing in my day-to-day life, right? Probably the same with you guys. While I was testing out the firmness of mattresses, I was making money. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. Hey everybody, I am here with Manuel Becvar, or Manu as you like to be called. How are you doing?
Oh, good. A little tired over here, but other than that, I'm perfect. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on. It's what, 5 in the morning there right now?
5 in the morning, yeah.
Yeah, so you got up early just to make the podcast. So yeah, we really appreciate that. Manuel,
gotta set priorities.
What's that? I'm sorry?
Gotta set priorities. That's for sure.
I know, right? You got to do it. So perfect. Well, you are an entrepreneur on many levels. You sell on Amazon, you sell in e-commerce, just e-com in general. You recently sold a passive income business that you've got for $300,000. You said you're actively working your import dojo business. You have Asia Invest. I mean, the list goes on and on. You sound like a version of me with different businesses. Or I sound like a version of you, I guess we could say. So that's really cool. Tell us anything that I missed. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, originally from Austria, but I've been living in Asia for the last 13 years now. I started out actually working in a corporate world. I worked for a big retailer in Europe as a product manager in Hong Kong. So I was dealing a lot with manufacturers in China, developing assortments, price negotiation, going on to all the shows in Asia, and then eventually started out building my own company. Started with a small company that served to retailers. So I was a manufacturer based in China, or a trading company if you want. And from there on, got really interested in e-commerce, started building one brand and the other brand, then Import Dojo, then started to help people sourcing with Asia Invest. And as you said, the list goes on. I can barely keep track of everything.
How much are you still doing a lot of business yourself selling on Amazon via private label?
I do have 2 brands on Amazon. One I can't really mention, that is doing about 60 to 70,000 a month, and the other brand that I, frankly speaking, that I really neglected in the last 2 years because of Import Dojo and Asia Invest, that is not doing so well. Currently 5 items, doing about 10 to 20,000 a month.
Okay, so you're just about clipping over that 100,000 6-figure mark per month, just on the FBA side. You're a 7-figure seller overall with all of your businesses, though. Is that right?
I would say that. I mean, I do have my own Shopify stores and e-commerce sites also. So all in all, I'd say it'd be 200 a month, okay. 200K a month.
Awesome. So your expertise, as far as I understand it, is sourcing from China. Is that right?
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Yeah, cool. I have a lot of questions for you then.
Fire away.
Actually, first, before we get into that, you said you have 2 products that you're selling right now, private label. How many ASINs? Is it just the 2 ASINs?
No, it's actually 4 ASINs and 5 variations. So altogether, it's 5 products on one brand, and the other brand has about 15 ASINs.
Okay. How many hours a day do you work?
Anywhere from 0 to 10.
Okay, 0. That would be a good day. That's when you just take off and relax.
I try once a week at least, or twice a week.
All right, cool. So let's get into the questions here. Scams, okay? That's one of the big things everybody's always talking about. They're about to send money, a deposit, overseas to a company they've never met, probably never picked up a phone and talked to. It's just all been through communication, through Skype or through some kind of a chat. What would be some common scams for the new seller to avoid?
I guess the most common scam is the bank account scam. So, you speak to a supplier for a while, you get comfortable with him, and all of a sudden he sends you the invoice with a bank account or bank name, bank account holder name that is completely different than the actual name. I just saw recently in a Facebook group a guy who said he got an invoice and the bank account was in Africa. So that's an obvious red flag. But even so, I mean, many suppliers in China, they have banks in Hong Kong because of the financial transactions is a lot easier through Hong Kong. So I wouldn't be worried if the bank account is in Hong Kong, but if the name of the company does not match up with the company that I'm speaking with, that's a bit of a red flag. Another scam is probably charging high fees for samples, $200, $300, $400, or just pushing it out like they're not really replying, but they're asking you for payments on samples, for example. Those could be two obvious reasons. So you got to do your vetting in the beginning right away with a set of questions, for example.
What would be a typical fee to charge for a sample? Let's say the sample normally is $10, and that's what you're ordering. What should you expect to pay?
I would say usually $50 to $100 is reasonable, including the logistic freight costs. But if someone's charging $200, $300, I mean, that's just ridiculous. But 50 to 100, it's not really the actual costs that they want to check on your side, because they want to check if you're serious as well. If you're not just someone who's collecting samples from a lot of suppliers. So see that $50 to $100 as an investment into your business.
Okay, and going back to the bank, if you've ordered a small order initially, everything checked out, you got it, and the next time you place a bigger one, if they are changing the bank account then, and I've actually had this happen to me, as long as the business name matches on the new bank account, would you say go for it, it's okay?
As long as the company name stays the same, or if there is a reasonable explanation, like, for example, I don't know, they moved factories, for example, or they moved to a different bank, but as long as the bank account name stays the same, I'm happy with that.
Okay, awesome. Any other scams other than those two?
Those are the two most common scams. I mean, the companies, if you're sourcing, if you're a private label guy and you source primarily, let's say, on Alibaba or Global Sources, because you can't make it out to the shows in Asia, Alibaba and Global Sources is doing a lot these days on getting all the suppliers really vetted in the front already. So they check their business registration, they call the companies, sometimes they even head over to those factories to check if they really exist. So they're doing a lot of work to really weed out the scammers.
Okay.
So it's not like 3-4 years ago, but it could still happen, sure.
Okay. Should people use the trade assurance that Alibaba offers?
If they can, they would. I would. I mean, I personally recommend to at least once go over to China, or maybe there's some shows over in the US where a lot of Chinese or Asian manufacturers exhibit. Mm-hmm. So if you have the chance, go to the shows, because you really see that person you see him in person, you can build a relationship, you get a better feeling, you see even products or samples. So it makes a lot of sense to go to the shows.
Okay. You mentioned a couple sourcing sites, including Alibaba. Are you familiar with 1688.com?
Yes. Personally, I don't really use any of them because I've been here for so long, so I have a lot of contacts. But 1688 is a good source if you're really looking for those products that you can't find on Alibaba or Global Sources, or if you're looking for really, really cheap prices. But be aware that the quality of those suppliers on 1688 is not always the best, to be honest.
Okay. How can you tell if it's going to be a good quality supplier or not?
Well, it depends on the communication. So for me, it's all really about the communication. If he responds to my questions, if he's, ambitious or proactive to really respond to all my questions, to my set of questions, and not, just reply to maybe 2 out of 5 questions, that really already signs that tell me, okay, he's either just in for the bigger clients or he doesn't really care about me. So, imagine if he misses out on a couple of questions at the beginning, how difficult it will be if I eventually place an order with him. Okay. So I move away from these people right away. How
do you protect yourself against a supplier who has your deposit, okay, and they've promised a specific delivery date? They've gone beyond this at this point. What should you do, first of all? And second of all, is there something you can do proactively that actually protects you? And should you ever get your money back or go with it?
So definitely never make a deposit of 100%. Always have 30% deposit and 70%, and that's the most important part, after the inspection. Always have an inspection. I don't understand why some people, they do first-time business with China maybe, or even they've been working with factories for a year, and they never have inspection. They just ask the suppliers to take some photos of the cartons, and obviously the supplier can take photos of the best cartons and the best samples that they have in hand during the production. So always have inspections by third parties. They start from anywhere from $100 up to $500, $600, depending on the order quantity you have. But always do inspections. And once the inspection is passed, then you can release the 70% to the supplier. Now, if you can also protect, that's a safety net, but you can also protect, let's say, your 30%, the rest of the money by integrating terms in your contract. So when I place an order to a factory, I usually have a very simple order sheet, and that has three main terms in it. First of all, if the inspection is failed, he has to rework until I'm satisfied, and he has to pay for the reinspection. Now, obviously, if there's just some minor issues during the inspection, I will release the shipment and make the deposit, the 70% rest payment. But if there's some major issues like, completely different color or lots of scratches, I will ask him to rework, and he has to do the reinspection. Otherwise, I won't pay him the 70%. The second term I mentioned is that if the shipment is very late, let's say I'm flexible. If he's like 7 to 10 days late, I would say, okay, it's not a problem. But if he's going over 10 or 14 days, I will usually charge 0.5% penalty on the shipment value. Now, if it's 20 days, it's 0.75%, and so on. And the third term would be to protect yourself or to protect your investment, to protect your products, would be to ask him that if the defect rate or return rate from customers, from Amazon customers, is over, let's say, 6%, I would ask him to replace those defect products coming in on my next order. So let's say I have 50 defect products, I will ask him to replace them on my reorder with him. So those are three terms I usually include in my contract.
Okay. Yeah, I have some of those similar terms. I with my suppliers, any returns I get that are for damaged products from Amazon where it's labeled damaged in some way, they give me credits, and on some of them I just now been getting a 1% overage just to cover defects. I guess if you're getting more than a certain percentage, you probably need to be beefing up your inspections and figuring out what's going on in that scenario anyways. So those are really good tips. Going back though to to your percentages that you charge, the penalties if they're over a certain time, how long will you go before you finally say, look, enough is enough, let's cancel this thing? I mean, you don't keep adding, a 0.25% indefinitely, right?
Definitely not going to do that. So if we're dragging on for a month, 6 weeks, I'd be trying to get at least my deposit back, like 30%, which will be difficult unless you have an escrow or, for example, a letter of credit payment. So it will be difficult to get 30% back. But just recently, for example, not sure if you heard of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency inspections in China. So one of my products is now delayed for 7 weeks. Nothing I can do here, I need the product. I know these inspections are happening in China right now, so I can't really blame the supplier. I can blame him for not being compliant in the first place. That's why he's in such a delay, because the agency is not releasing my shipment, or they're not letting the factory start the production again. Mm-hmm. So I could blame him for that, but it's his hands are tied in some ways also. China is a bit corrupt in a way sometimes. So if you don't pay right away, some of these agencies, they do work with under-table money. So it's difficult to say in this point at this place, okay, it's 7 weeks, you owe me this much money. In that case, for example, I would say, okay, I understand. Let's try to hit a new shipment window. Let's say middle of October. And then I'm reasonable, I won't even ask for the penalty fee, because in this case, I know it's going on. So these things are happening.
And the penalty fee, is that usually charged as a discount to the remaining 70%, or is it a credit for a future order? How do you do that?
I would see, it depends on the supplier. I would either discount the remaining value of the order that I still have to pay, or I would ask him to add the percentage in free units on top of my order. So let's say I have 1,000 units. and I don't know, we've hit 4% penalty, I would ask him maybe to add 40 units for free.
Getting to that point requires you to have negotiated some really good pricing. Can you share any top negotiating tips that you use when you're negotiating with these suppliers?
I use my common negotiating tips. So when I initially start out with a new supplier, I would have a target price in mind, but I wouldn't really I wouldn't be very strict with my target price. Now, I don't really do a lot of negotiation on my first round. I keep my lever for later. So usually when I place the order, I would then really go into negotiation. I would either tell him, look, I have 3 other suppliers on hand, but I like yours the most, your item. I'm looking for this and this price. Can you meet it or not? You know, he's already smelling the money. So at this point, they usually, okay, we can do, for example, 5% lower than we originally quoted. Another way would be to initially ask for 3 different quantities. Let's say I already want to order 1,000 pieces. I will still ask the supplier to quote me 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000. Excuse me. Now, let's say the 1,000 unit price is $5 and the 3,000 unit price is $4, right? So I would eventually go in and tell the supplier, all right, look, I'm ready to place the order. I want to do 1,000 units. I know the price for 1,000 units is $5, but I really need your support here. This is our first order, cooperation, yada, yada. And I'm looking for a price of $4.20, for example, because I already know the range that he can give me, right? So maybe he's not giving me $4.20, but again, he's smelling the money, he's ready to work with me. So maybe he gives me $4.65 or $4.70, and I still save 30 cents. So this is one way. Another way that I usually use negotiation also on packaging. I mean, many of the suppliers in China, they still work a lot with big retailers. So they're used to quoting prices in color box packaging. 4 color box. But if you're just starting out, if you have a small quantity, I would actually ask the supplier to quote in a white box, just my sticker and the barcode on it. And then they usually say, okay, we can either lower the quantity or we can give you a better price if you just want a white box. So yeah, these are 3 things I use commonly.
Okay, cool. How do you know if you're getting the best price? Because, for example, if they say you're getting the best price we've ever given any of our customers, any way to kind of verify that in any way?
I heard that a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
I guess for me it's the experience because I've been here so long. But then again, people can also reference, for example, raw material prices. If your product is made 90% out of plastic and you look at raw material prices and you know the weight of your material, I mean, that would be one way to check. If you've been working with a factory for a very long time, you can actually ask them for a BOM, a bill of material, which means he will send you the material list and the price breakdown of the cable, the coating, the material itself, the weight. And then, I'm happy if the supplier makes some money. He should be able to make some margin. He needs to pay his workers. He needs to make some profit. I'm okay with that. So if he puts a margin on top of the BOM, let's say the actual raw material price, including the assembly, would be $4 and he charges me $5, I'm happy with that, But if he charges me $8, I'm not happy with that. So another way would be to ask for a bill of material, but that really usually happens only if you've been working with a supplier for a long time, because they usually don't want to expose their material costs.
Okay, that's great. I've never heard of a BOM, a bill of material. So that's cool. It's a good. That's a nugget right there. I love that. So, what are warning signs that tell you whether a supplier that you're looking for is a good supplier or a bad supplier? Is there anything you've seen that stands out?
Obvious warning signs are the scam signs that we talked about earlier. But the suppliers have positive and negative traits maybe. Positive trait for me is if he's proactive. Is he responding in a timely manner? Is he responding in 24 hours or in 76 hours? Is he proactively offering me different items also? Maybe I'm not happy with the item and I don't respond to his initial offering. Good suppliers, they send you new items every 2 or 4 weeks, for example. does he maybe point out things that you missed or that you're not aware of? For example, if I missed some labeling on the packaging, or if I missed to input the insert card, does he reach out to me and say, hey, dude, you forgot to add this because this is really important? Or little things like the made in China under the barcode or on the packaging. Generally, is he communicative? Is he proactively working towards our relationship? These are good things that I look for in a supplier. Bad things are obviously, if he's just asking for money, does he reply my emails very late? Is he finding excuses regarding our projects? The workers have come back late, or, the inspections, or, if he's just looking for excuses, then these are obviously bad signs in a supplier.
You said earlier you should visit China if you get a chance. Okay. I've been to China. It was drastically different than California, let's just say. So any culture tips and advice, any business trip advice, things for people that have no idea, other than they, at least from here, you need to get a visa and stuff. But when they get there, things they should do, things they shouldn't do, and so on.
Well, China has changed in the last 13 years since I've been here. I mean, my first time in China, I thought, it's going to be pagodas and rice fields, but that was not the case. It was all industry and smog. It was not a good experience. But anyway, since then, things have changed a lot. I mean, I've been going to the Canton Fair every year, twice a year in April and October. And the first year I was there in 2005, there was one ATM. There was no McDonald's, no fast food. It was badly organized. But now these days, everything is good. I mean, you have lots of ATMs. Everything is in English. You have Western food. Transportation is very well organized to and from the exhibition grounds. I mean, that's just the Canton Fair. If you're really a first-timer, all you really need is your visa. Prepare business cards, name cards. Not smooth, loose clothing. I mean, you'll be walking all day at the show. So get some sneakers, but, don't come showing up in shorts and flip-flops. Have a bit of professionalism. But other than that, I mean, everyone speaks English at the exhibitions too. People are always concerned, do I need a translator? Do I need an agent? You don't need any of that. Just prepare yourself in advance. For example, if you go into the Canton Fair, I mean, flights are going directly to Canton, to Guangzhou these days. Check out the hotels on agoda.com or expedia.com. All of these hotels have shuttle buses, free shuttle buses to and from the exhibitions. And, inform yourself a little bit about the exhibition. For example, if you're going to phase 2 of Canton Fair, which is 20-something October until middle of October, or last week of October, they already show you the hall plans. They already show you which suppliers are there. They already tell you, hall ABC is, for example, furnitures. So inform yourself a little bit and prepare yourself. What do you actually want to see? What I constantly do is also I prepare a shopping list for myself. That could be a simple Word file or an Excel file where I put down all my products that I really want to find at the shows. And prepare yourself with a good set of questions for the suppliers. For example, when you walk into a booth, I have like 5-6 questions that I usually ask. Does he work with customers in the markets that I'm selling with? Does he have experience with my market? What are his minimum order quantities? Can I even work with him in the first place? What are his best-selling items? If he can tell me 5 best-selling items that he's selling to the US, for example, or Western Europe, I want him to quote those to me. Another question would be standard things like, where is your factory located? How many workers do you have? If I get the feeling this is a guy who has like 20 people in his workshop and he's working out of an office maybe, move on to the next supplier, because there's thousands of booths at the exhibition, so you don't have a lot of time unless you will be there for 5-6 days. But I usually go like 1.5 or 2 days, so I can already spot who are the good suppliers or not. I mean, if you go into a booth and he has towels and furniture and fans and electric heaters, he's obviously a big trading company or maybe even a small one, and I don't want to work with him because of maybe prices or, he's a bit of a Turkish bazaar. But if you have a supplier who is specialized on 1 or 2 product ranges, like sanitary items, sanitary furniture. He's professional in what he's doing. So, he has the expertise on those items, and he's not covering 30 different product categories.
Awesome. So when your last question or your last answer brings me to this question, when is it better to use a trade company versus the factory? Is there a scenario for you when that's the case?
I work a lot with trading companies, actually, and there is a general misconception that working with trading companies is bad, and all you need to do is you need to find a manufacturer at source. But these days, all of the companies are trading companies in a way. I mean, a factory often claims, I'm a factory. But in reality, all they do is they assemble the raw materials that they get from their raw material factories. I've seen it so many times. And because it's not feasible these days anymore to manufacture everything in-house, painting, metal, packaging, metal stamping maybe, all these things cost a lot of money. And what we do in the FBA world, we outsource a lot of our tasks, and so do the suppliers in China. I mean, they work with so many different suppliers, raw material suppliers, packaging suppliers. They don't do everything in-house anymore. So coming back to the main question, when do you work with a trading company or factory? I mean, if I've been working with a factory for a while, but they're also a trading company for other products that maybe are similar to the products that they're making, I'm happy to tell him, look, looking for a remote control, can you also source that for me? I know it's not the usual thing, but can you source that for me from another factory? And, they have thousands of contacts that I may not even be able to reach. And some factories, they don't want to work together with customers directly. Either, for example, they don't have an export license, or they have big enough customers. Some factories are inaccessible. So it's a question of, am I happy with my prices? Am I happy with my service? Or, am I having troubles with my trading company? I mean, a trading company takes off a lot of things from your shoulder. For example, if the factory doesn't speak any English and the trading company does speak English and they have a lot of experience with Western companies, and the factory does not have any experience with Western companies, I'm happy to work with a trading company, even if that means I pay 20 cents on the product more.
Yeah, that makes sense. The English can be a massive thing.
Yeah.
What do you use, by the way? What tool do you use to actually communicate with suppliers? You Skype? What's that?
I Skype.
Okay.
I Skype. I know they all want to use WeChat, but I hate WeChat for some reason. I don't know. So if I have quick things, I do it through Skype, or I often call, actually. And if I want to have something in written, like, something important, I send an email.
Okay. What are some big mistakes that sellers make when reaching out to Chinese suppliers for the very first time? Have you seen this?
I have, but again, people are getting educated these days. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of podcasts, a lot of people like you who help a lot of sellers out there. So initially, the biggest mistake, I think, was not being professional. Like a couple of years ago, and still today, I received emails, hey, I'm interested in your product. Please send me a price. No name, no nothing, no who am I, if I'm a supplier and I get this kind of email, I'm not going to respond, because if he wants me to act professional and I'm a supplier, I also will want him to act professional. So communication and being professional on emails is one thing. Another thing is, I still see it often not doing any inspections. That's the biggest mistake you can make when you first reach out to a supplier.
Let me ask you that. Do you do inspections every single time you place an order with the same supplier, the 10th time? Every time. I just posted in my Facebook group pictures of my 7th reorder with one of my suppliers, and he's totally screwed it up. It's not my sales rep who screws up things. It can be the factory worker, or maybe the factory has recently lost a lot of workers, so they had to hire a lot of new, inexperienced workers from some faraway province. Yeah.
So those are things, or maybe the QA manager in the production had a bad day, or the factory manager itself said, guys, we need to save money, don't tell anyone, but we're going to use less coating, for example. It's not my sales rep that I trust. It's the hierarchies below the sales rep. And Every time. To answer your question, each and every time.
Every time. Who do you like to use? If people said, which inspection companies would you recommend? Do you have any that you like to rattle off the top of your head?
I have two. I have 5 or 6 that I have contact with. I actually don't want to give away that one source because he's so cheap, but he's so excellent. But guys, if you want to check it out, it's Efficient Inspection, ChinaQualityCheck.com. He charges $100. I have no affiliation with him. Mm-hmm. It's just he's that good. I mean, he sends you a 25, 30 pages report, and he charges $100. I mean, if it's some faraway location, then they charge more. The other companies that I use for more complicated, maybe electrical items, I use AsiaInspection.com. And for really, really, if it may be chemical or if it's a baby or children's product, I usually use SGS or TUV Sud. Those are the big European third-party companies.
I'll end this on one question for you specifically. If you can go back, you've been in this 13 years? Is that right?
13 years in China and 19 years when I started, yeah, more or less.
Well, if you could go back, let's say at the point where you were starting the whole Amazon business venture, and you could talk to yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
Don't go into Bluetooth speakers, garlic presses.
Garlic presses.
I guess I was afraid a lot in the beginning to invest my own money. But that's just the way it is. This is the business model. You have to invest money in order to make money. But even so, it's just a tiny amount. I mean, for me, a tiny amount is $3,000. But I usually start my orders with, could be $8,000, $15,000 because I usually go ahead with 1,000 units. But I would tell myself not to be so afraid because if you have the right marketing, if you have the drive to get there, to make those 20 sales a day, you can make it unless you are selling garlic presses or Bluetooth speakers. But if you're listening to Manny's podcast, if you follow his advice on promotions, marketing, and so on, I mean, you can do it. Just do proper research, but don't be afraid too much to invest. It's going to work out eventually. And the worst case that really happens is I sell at cost. Even if that's really low, I sometimes sell at cost or lose some money. But that's the risk you have to take as an entrepreneur, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to have you back on, and because I could probably have another 10, 15 questions to ask you that we can go into in depth, because these are all great. You have a service that helps people if they're looking for, is it a sourcing agent or ways to actually find products? Or tell us a little bit about that and the best way to reach you.
Sure. The company is called AsiaInvest.com. People can reach us at through the contact page or at info@asiainvest.com. So what we do is we source for e-commerce sellers, Amazon sellers, Shopify sellers, because we've been in China for 13 years. My team is local Chinese. We also have one Western general manager there. So what we do is we've collected a file of over 3,000 suppliers now, and those are suppliers that we trust, that we worked with together, that we met in person, or that come with a very high recommendation. So if you, for example, are looking for a new speaker or a headset or whatever, or any product category except textile, leather, we're not that great, but we source any product category. We go into our database of 10, 15, 30 suppliers in each product category. We email them, we filter them out, we vet them for you, and we'll send you the report after a couple of days, and you can contact suppliers yourself and take it from there, or you can also hire us to do, the entire full sourcing from sourcing to Amazon's warehouse. We take care of that too.
Everything, okay. And then typically, can a person or company get a better rate going through you than they would if they went directly on Alibaba and try to do it themselves?
We don't pride ourselves with getting the cheapest prices. We want to find the supplier that is the most suitable for you. If you have very high requirements and you want that manufacturer to fulfill your requirements, maybe the supplier we have is 20 cents more expensive than the one you find on Alibaba, but at least he's the one who can actually help you, because Alibaba is a lot of click and bait also. We forgot to mention that earlier. he quotes you a price on the site for $5, and then you come with packaging, you want FBA certification, and then all of a sudden your price is at $8, and that's maybe at the point when you're ready to place the order. What we do for our clients is we check, for example, if you tell me now, I'm looking for this and this certification, this packaging, this accessory, we go in and find the right suitable supplier right away, and we'll give you a final price. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's more expensive than what you found on Alibaba, but at least it's the final price. And of course, we do some more negotiation for you, but there's no more obstacles in the way. I mean, we have it all negotiated for you already. Okay. And sometimes we find very good prices. I mean, it's not like we don't look for good prices either.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I would rather spend 50 cents more on a particular product unit and make sure that it's high quality, that I'm going to be getting 4 and 5 star reviews nonstop, that the returns aren't going to be very high because of damaged units, that you have a frustration-free experience, because it can drive you nuts when deadlines are missed or there's problems at the while importing it. But one last question, actually. People right now, they're asking, what's the final deadline for Christmas? Is there still time for people to get in?
If you do some air shipment, and if you have a very simple off-the-shelf product, you may be able to do it. But keep in mind, now it's public holidays in China. End of October, there's another week of holidays. And everyone wants to get his product out before Christmas and maybe even before Chinese New Year. I think now is even almost too late to ship out before Chinese New Year. So, but unless you have a very simple item, white box packaging, 500 units, air shipment, could be possible. Could be.
Okay. Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Like I said, I definitely want to have you come back on. We're going to stay in touch. I want to use your service so I can report back on how it all works. I think that'll be really cool. Thank you for getting up so early. And we'll talk real soon.
You've been listening to the AMPM podcast, hosted by Manny Coates. For more information, insider tools, and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit ampmpodcast.com.